Hey all you Nintendo Switch fans, welcome back to the channel. I am Trick Wallace here with another roundup of great eShop deals. We're coming off the holidays, so obviously the deals aren't quite as plentiful, but there are some really solid options in here, and I'm really excited to talk to you about them. So let's jump right into these deals. First of all, we have Tinykin. Tinykin is hitting its lowest price ever, 20% off, bringing it down to $19.99. Normally, I try to only include deals that hit about 30% off or more, but I had to talk about Tinykin because even though I haven't talked about it yet on this channel, this is actually my favorite game of last year. Yes, this is my top game of 2022. I absolutely fell in love with Tinykin. So what is Tinykin? Basically a 90s style collectathon platformer, but it also takes a lot of little trappings of Pikmin because you have the Tinykin and you collect them and they help you with certain tasks or certain platforming challenges. And there's also a little bit of Paper Mario, obviously with the design aesthetic of the 2D sprites and the 3D world, and also with the humor. It's sort of goofy, but there's also some slightly serious undertones. But this game is just phenomenal. Again, my favorite game of 2022. I just had a big goofy grin on my face the entire time I was playing this. If you love a great platformer and if you love Pikmin and like the idea of those two mashed together, you would fall absolutely in love with Tinykin. And I would recommend this game wholeheartedly at full price, so any sort of percentage off is just sweetening that deal. So even if you don't want to pick it up on this sale, make sure you at least wishlist it, and there is a demo available so you can try it out for yourself first. Moving on, we have the Crisis Remaster Trilogy. It is 45% off, hitting its ultimate rock bottom low of $27.49. What can I tell you about Crisis you don't already know? What I will say are these are amazing ports of Crisis. Crisis 1, Crisis 2, and Crisis 3. Now, they're not going to look as good as the Remaster Trilogy on the next-gen platforms, but Digital Foundry did a really cool breakdown of this game and showed that these are actual serious upgrades to their PS3 and Xbox 360 counterparts. Yeah, these actually look better and they run at a better, smoother 30 frames per second locked frame rate. Again, it goes without saying, you could definitely get a higher fidelity experience on the next-gen stuff, but for the Switch, it's really impressive what they've done here. Terror of Hemosaurus is also 20% off, bringing it down to its first ever sale, its lowest price ever, $11.99. I know I just said a moment ago that I really try to wait for deals to be a little more significant, but I love Terror of Hemosaurus. I just recently got to try it out. If you're a big fan of Rampage, the old arcade game, you would love Terror of Hemosaurus. Now, it takes that basic Rampage sort of skeletal outline of an arcade game, but it adds a little bit more of a physics-based destruction in the buildings. So it's got some really cool mechanics where if you take out weak spots of buildings, you can topple one building into another, creating these really cool domino effects. There's all kinds of chaos. Of course, you can eat people, you can kick them across the way, you can pick them up and throw them into the helicopters that are coming after you. It's just non-stop craziness, and I love Terror of Hemosaurus. The only little thing I would mention is that there's actually a little bit of swearing in the written dialogue, which is a little bit disappointing because it's the kind of game I'd like to be able to sit with my son and play. Thankfully, it does have an arcade mode, which doesn't have any of that dialogue, but just know that if you are playing the story mode, it does get a little bit salty in the language. Nobody Saves the World is on sale again, but this time hitting its lowest price ever, 40% off, only $14.99. And a fantastic dungeon crawler from Drinkbox Studios. They are, of course, the ones who brought us the great can't talk today. The great Guacamelee games. But Nobody Saves the World, again, it's a dungeon crawler where you play as a nobody and he has this magic wand. He can change into all different kinds of forms, and each of these forms are upgradable. So it's just sort of a non-stop gameplay loop of getting new forms and then upgrading them. So it's super addictive. A really hidden gem from last year. You definitely should check out Nobody Saves the World. Trash Sailors is hitting its lowest price ever, 50% off, only $9.99. In fact, this is its first sale ever. This game was weird. It kind of just sat in limbo for a long time. I couldn't figure it out. And it turns out that the developers, unfortunately, were stationed right in Ukraine. So that's what kind of caused the constant delays. But this is a really unique little party game where you and up to 3 other players are manning this little ship. And you're making your way through turbulent waters, collecting trash, upgrading the ship and just, again, making your way down these treacherous pathways. From what I've played, I've really enjoyed it, but you'd really need a co-op partner, I think, to fully enjoy it. I mean, it's just kind of like Overcooked or one of those other type of party games. Yeah, you can play them on your own, but it's definitely going to really come alive with co-op partners. Some have accused the game of being a little bit on the short side and a little bit too easy, but for my personal opinion, for a co-op game, that's kind of how I would want it to be. Next, we have Blue Fire. It is 60% off, matching its previous low, only $7.99. I've talked about this one before, but it is kind of a personal favorite of mine. Easiest way to describe it, I suppose you would say something like Hollow Knight crossed with like a Super Mario 64 or Super Mario Sunshine. So now it does a good job with the adventuring and the combat and whatnot, but it really does excel mostly at the platforming. It's just a shockingly good platformer, has some really cool challenge levels, and now they've added in a new update where you can actually create your own challenge levels. So they're still supporting it with new updates, so it's definitely a game that is definitely worth checking out now more than ever. Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope, it is 25% off for only $44.99. Okay, so this one is worth noting that the physical, as of recording this, and if it's still true, I'll make sure to leave a link, it is only $40 on Amazon right now, so it's actually a little bit cheaper for the physical, so that's probably the way you want to go if you pick it up. I do hesitate on super hardcore recommending any game from Ubisoft when it's this high in price, because Ubisoft is pretty aggressive with sales, and I would not be surprised if this new Mario and Rabbids is down to like $30 by the summer. But if you can't wait, this is still a solid price to pick it up. If you're not familiar, these are basically Mario mixed with a sort of XCOM strategy style game. But this new one has been absolutely lauded by the critics. It seems like it is a major hit and definitely worth being added to your Switch library. Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection, it is 50% off, only $14.99. That is matching its previous low price. This is a remake of Ghosts and Goblins, has an absolutely amazing sort of storybook aesthetic now to it. I adore the art style. Do know going into this though that they have not toned down the difficulty. If anything, it's just as hard as always. Ghosts and Goblins is definitely a game for video game masochists. You gotta like those kind of games that almost punish you. So if you're into that style of game and you like the idea of a new fresh coat of paint over it, you would definitely enjoy Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection. Unbound Worlds Apart, it's getting its lowest price ever, only $6.99. That is 65% off. I've never gotten to try the full version of this, but I tried the demo a while back, really enjoyed it. It's a sort of like a Metroidvania style platformer game, but what's unique is that you have the ability to create these sort of portals that will change the environment around you. So different portals will do different things. Again, I just got a little snippet of it from the demo, but I really liked what I tried out, and it's got a 78 on Metacritic, so it's got some really solid reviews, and again, this is by far its lowest price ever. Justice Sucks, it is 20% off, giving it its lowest price ever. That is $15.99. I've taken a look at this before on my channel in a live stream, so I will make sure to link to that if you want to check out more of this. Again, I know I'm giving you some games that aren't super heavily discounted, but I loved Justice Sucks. It's hilarious. You play as a Roomba who is programmed to take on intruders. It's ridiculously over the top. It's bloody. It's got a really goofy sense of humor. The whole thing takes place sort of like in the 1990s, so if you're nostalgic for that sort of aesthetic, you're going to really enjoy this one. I think the game is very reasonably priced at $20. There's a lot of game here, but as always, a sale just sort of sweetens the deal and makes a great game even that much more enjoyable to pick up. Next, we have In My Shadow, which is currently at its lowest price ever, 40% off, only $7.20. Now, I haven't personally picked this one up yet myself. The reviews are a little bit mixed, but some people seem to really enjoy it. It's a very unique puzzle platformer. Now, the twist with this game is that you are placing objects in this room, and the beams of light are creating shadows on the wall. And those shadows are what you're going to be facing as your platforming challenges. Now, there's apparently sort of a dark sort of story that's going on behind the scenes. So, definitely not a super lighthearted game, probably not something you want to pick up for your kids. But if you don't mind a slightly more serious tone game with a unique puzzle platforming mechanic, you could probably get a lot out of In My Shadow. Bright Memory Infinite Gold Edition, it is at its lowest price ever, 20% off, only $15.99. I guess more than anything, I'm taking advantage of the lesser amount of deals to tell you about games that I did play last year that I really enjoyed. I absolutely loved Bright Memory Infinite Gold Edition. It was a game that was totally not on my radar. I picked it up, and I was shocked by how technically amazing it is for a Switch game. you can see as for yourself in the footage that this really is a beautiful first-person shooter. Kind of plays like something like Crysis. It's just gorgeous. The biggest word of caution I would give you is that this is a pretty short game. I think you could probably get it done in less than maybe 3 to 4 hours. But those 3 to 4 hours are action-packed, including a lot of really cool melee sword combat, a lot of great platforming abilities, and of course, tons of great gunfire. And let's be honest, the Switch is pretty hard up for quality first-person shooters, so this is definitely one at least to add to your wish list for a future pickup. Soundfall is at its lowest price ever, 60% off, only $11.99. This is a very well critically received dungeon crawler game, but the unique twist here is that all the combat is played with a sort of rhythm action mechanic. So you've got the sort of typical looter shooter mechanics, but again, set to that music rhythm, and this can be played with up to 4 people total co-op. Honestly, not my cup of tea. I really suck at these sort of games that try to mix music rhythm with a normal game, but from the people who like that kind of stuff, they seem to really enjoy this one. So if you really enjoy something like Crypt of the Necrodancer, this one would probably be something you'd want to check out. The House of the Dead remake is at its lowest price ever, 50%, only $12.49. You probably know what House of the Dead is. I'm going to be super honest. The reviews are very mixed on this, but the people who like it, they really like it, and the people who didn't like it, they really didn't like it. And it seems the common trend is if you are a fan of this growing up, you're probably going to be able to see past some of the rougher edges and really get a lot of enjoyment out of it. So if you're itching for a fun light gun shooter, which there's not a ton of on the Switch, this could be a solid pickup. Fighty Goose is currently 50% off, only $9.99. This is a great game. It basically mixes something like Metal Slug, except now you're a goose in a mech suit. And it's exactly as beautiful and wonderful as that sounds. It's just goofy, it's silly. It's got up to 2-player co-op. It's such a great, silly, fun time. Kind of just takes you back to when video games didn't worry about serious stories or plot lines. It's just super silly and great run and gun action. And lastly, we have It Takes Two. It's 25% off, only $29.99. This was actually Game of the Year for a lot of outlets last year for the systems it came out on. Just came out on Switch this year. I can tell you I have not played the Switch version, but the footage looks pretty admirable compared to the Xbox or the PlayStation counterparts. I have played, however, it on my Xbox, and I can tell you that it's an absolute blast. This is basically a co-op platformer. And when I say co-op, that is the one downside of the game is that you have to play a co-op. There's no way to play this single player. It's fully designed for 2 people to play together. But because it is that way, I really think it works better than almost any other co-op game I've ever played. You can really see the difference that when a game is built ground up with the concept of how great it can be. It sits at an 84 on Metacritic for the Switch version, definitely deserving of that. And if you buy it, there is a Friends Pass that other people can download. So as long as at least one person actually owns the copy of the game, if you've got a friend, you can still jump together online and play this. Or of course, you can always go the split screen route. All right, everybody, I really hope you enjoyed these deals. I know that the deals aren't quite as plentiful and stellar this week, but like I said, I was really enjoying talking about some games last year that I enjoyed that I didn't get a chance to talk about yet. So at the very least, you can go around wishlisting some of these games, but like I said, a lot of those games I recommended at full price, so really it just sweetens the deal. So I hope you have a great day and great gaming, and I will see you tricksters later. Bye-bye.